second time I'm presenting this. I said, there are a certain number of people, business, industry, government, who always say no the first time you suggest something new because they're lazy. And if they say yes, they're going to have to do something about it. But there's another group, they're even more dangerous in a way, who always say no the first time you suggest something new or different because they want to see if you believe in it enough to come back and ask again. So never take the first no. Always go back and ask again. As a matter of fact, I take about 4 no's and then I figure out how to get around the guy, but that technique comes with age. I ran into one of these guys during World War II in Buard. After about 2 or 3 suggestions, I noticed he always said no to things the first time. So the next time I went in to suggest something, I said, let's pretend this is the second time I'm presenting this. I said, you always say no the first time. And he looked at me with the funniest expression. I had him over the barrel from then on because I just go and say, this is the 4th time I'm requesting this. Let's just say yes now. So never, never, never take the first no on a new concept. It's terribly important that we listen to our youngsters. Some very interesting things are happening in the Navy. I know one case of a young lieutenant junior grade who went aboard a ship. The Navy thought it was too small to have a computer. He took his own computer aboard. He was an admin. Pretty soon he had all the ship's records in his computer. He was getting all the reports out on time, beautiful, accurate. Everything was just marvelous. When he was transferred, the captain had to buy his computer. I know another case where the commander of a squadron was told to take his squadron out to a carrier. He found that when he did, he would have to leave all his maintenance records in the Naval Air Rework Facility, the NARF. This didn't please him at all. He wanted the maintenance records of his planes with him. So he went out and bought himself an Apple. With the assistance of an ensign and a DP in the NARF, he borrowed, stole, liberated, copied his records from the NARF into his Apple, got a case for it, put it in the space behind his seat, which is supposed to take his suitcase, and flew off to the carrier with all of his maintenance records and a computer with which to keep them up to date. Every commander of every squadron should have that. Somebody said, are you supposed to do that? He said, I didn't ask. I long ago discovered, of course you don't all have the same advantage I have, but I long ago discovered that the best way to get something done was to do it, and if necessary, apologize. It's much easier to apologize. You have no idea, oh gee, I didn't know I couldn't do that. I can turn into the most helpless old female you ever saw. We've got to listen to our youngsters. We've got to do the new things. And it isn't too hard to apologize, believe me. We got another case, a young electronic technician, first class, out in the Pacific Fleet, built a computer. The PR man of his ship thought this was terrific. So he took a picture of the sailor and his computer and put it in Navy Times. Admiral Cullen saw it. So he wrote a letter to the sailor and congratulated him. And he sent it direct through the mail instead of sending it through channels. So the sailor decided that if the admiral could write him direct, he could write the admiral direct. And he did. And he thanked the admiral for his letter. He pointed out he didn't know admirals read Navy Times, but he was glad they did. He then went on for 10 pages, both sides, single-spaced, and told the admiral exactly what was wrong with the computers in the Pacific Fleet and what ought to be done about it. It was probably the best survey we'd ever seen. Sir Admiral reached out his hand and said, ET-1 Slater, Pacific Fleet to Norfolk. He gave him 3 more ETs and some DPs, that's our programmers, and some money, told him to build the computer. In 4 months' time, out of off-the-shelf components, they built it. 3 small boxes, database management system and everything, just beautiful. They set him up as the Micro Evaluation Group. It's under the Naval Regional Data Center, Norfolk. They've run every micro in the country and run most of the software. They know exactly what's available and what you can do with it. Anybody in the Navy thinking of getting microcomputers can consult with them, and they'll give them real good, solid help, writing the RFP or acquiring the computer that they need for that job. 3.5, 4 months ago, I've forgotten just when, they put on a seminar on microcomputers. They didn't think they'd really get very many people. They hoped for 100 people. They had to cut it off when they got 300. They got a hall in one of the local Norfolk buildings, They had booths. They leaned on all the micro manufacturers, each to bring in their micro. And they had every one of those micros, I think there were 27 or something like that of them, every one of those micros running an actual Navy problem. So when the Navy came in, they could see the micros doing their kind of problem. They've got some marvelous speakers. Probably one of the most successful seminars on micros I've ever seen, all put on by those young enlisted men. In fact, Slater, who's now a chief, has recently written an excellent paper, Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Microcomputers But Didn't Know Who to Ask. It's top-notch. You can get a copy from Ardac Norfolk. Excellent job. All the questions you should ask when acquiring a micro and why the different answers apply to different things. It's top-notch for an individual who wants to get a microcomputer or for a small installation, like our small naval bases and so on that want to get a microcomputer. It's a beautiful job. Contributed a tremendous amount to the Navy. We've got to learn to listen to those young men. They're bright as they can be, and they really know that equipment. And it's true of our young officers and our young enlisted men. We've got to learn to listen to them, because the uppermost people have been much too busy managing things to keep up with the technical developments. There was something else that was driving me toward the future and worrying about the future. When I met Mark I back in 1944, Mark I was 51 feet long, 8 feet high, 8 feet deep. She was in a magnificent glass case designed by Norman Belgettis. And what's more, she had 72 whole words of storage. Each word consisted of 23 decimal digits and an algebraic sign. And, in addition, she could do 3 additions every single second. 3 times every second she could get 2 quantities from memory, add them together, and put the answer back. That sounds pitiful to you today, but if you go back and look at the newspapers and magazines of that period, you'll find that Mark I was the most remarkable tool that man had ever built, because she was the first tool that assisted the power of his brain instead of the strength of his arm, the very first one. She did an addition in 333 milliseconds, 3 additions per second, 333 thousandths of a second. We didn't stop there. There were a lot more computers built during the rest of the war, most of them under contract to the Department of Defense at various universities. Not till 1951 did we have the first commercial electronic computer, and that was old UNIVAC I. And a year ago at the National Computer Conference, they celebrated her 30th birthday. She even got a birthday cake. And UNIVAC I could do an addition in 282 microseconds, 282 millionths of a second, and we were going 1,000 times faster. We didn't stop there. By 1964, out came the first of the CDC 6400s, and it did an addition in 300 nanoseconds, 300 billionths of a second. And we were again going 1,000 times faster. Now, if you're not about the future, as I am, naturally you have to try and write the next line, see what it looks like. 19 question mark. Well, we need an XYZ system that adds in 300 picoseconds, 300 trillionths of a second for a complete addition, storage to adder, add them together and put the answer back. Another 1,000 times faster. The answer is we need it right now. There are a couple of problems for which we need it very badly. The population of the world is increasing. That means we have to increase food supplies. The biggest assist we could give to increasing food supplies would be better long-term weather forecasts. You may remember a couple of years back they planted corn out in Iowa. Before it was fully rooted, heavy rains came, washed it all out. They had to wait for a second shipment of seed and fertilizer and plant again. It was too late. The early frost got it. If they'd known the rains were coming, they could have delayed the first planting and would have had that crop. Yet we do not today have a computer which will run a full-scale model of the big heat engine which consists of the atmosphere and the oceans. We haven't even tested all of our models. Now, that didn't matter till a few years ago. We didn't have the data to feed into those models. The Navy was dropping radio-equipped buoys in the rivers of the oceans to get more information. We were putting sensors on commercial airliners, recorded on tape and took them off when they landed. But now we have the satellite photographs. Those satellite photographs, the Landsat photographs, are so darn good that when they're fully enhanced by computer, we can actually tell how high the waves are out in the middle of the Pacific. We can tell what the temperature of the ocean is 20 feet below the surface. Of course, there's a catch. To fully enhance a satellite photograph takes 10 to the 15th power arithmetic operations. That's close